Hello and welcome everyone to another OpenAIRE training webinar on Horizon Europe Open Science Requirements in Practice. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly go over a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made publicly available shortly afterward. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts during the webinar, please use the Q&A section. You can also upvote questions you'd like our speakers to prioritize, and if we are unable to address all questions during the sessions, we will follow up with a blog post after the webinar. You can find the link to the presentations on this slide, and you may also scan the QR code to access them directly. The link will also be shared in the chat. Now I'd like to introduce and warmly welcome our speakers for today. Jonathan England, Open Science Training Specialist at OpenAIRE, who will walk us through the Horizon Europe Open Science requirements and share practical tips, tools, and services to help ensure compliance. Maya Dolinar, User Engagement and EOSC Liaison at OpenAIRE, who will present the EOSC EU Node, which provides useful tools for your project. And Lars Poul-Nielsen, Head of Open Science Infrastructure at CERN, who will introduce the EU Open Research Repository, a Zenodo-based repository that meets all Horizon Europe requirements. With this brief introduction, I would like to hand the floor over to Jonathan to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilee. Yes, hello everyone. So today, for the next hour or so, 45 minutes, we will be giving you a presentation, and then there will be between 30 to 45 minutes of time for Q&A. So the idea is really to give you an overview of what you need to do when you are funded by the European Commission. And I will also be touching upon a bit the grant proposal part. So you already have the slides available at the link that is provided, and here is a slide where you can find some useful links to the different documents that we will be mentioning. So in terms of the European Commission, the European Commission defines open science as an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tools as early and as widely as possible in the process, which is pretty much what the general open science definition is. So as you probably know, there's open access to publications, there's the research data management, and this concept that is quite specific to the European Commission, which is access to data as open as possible, as close as necessary. And we'll see that's a bit more into details. And there's another two things that is important to mention in terms of the European Commission is that you need to provide any type of information about outputs, tools, instruments that are needed to validate or reuse the results and the data. That's something that they emphasize on. And you also need to provide access to digital or physical results to validate the conclusions. And we'll see that there are some exceptions to that. So let's start with the open access to publications. So here is just a slide to summarize for you for reference for later, but let's go into a bit more details. So in terms of the policy, the policy only applies to peer-reviewed publication. So it is recommended for any type of work that you create throughout the project, but only peer-reviewed publications are fall under the mandate. Really important aspects, there are no restrictions where you can publish. We will see that there are some restrictions in terms of how you pay for open access, but you are not restricted on where you can publish. What you do need to do, if it's a peer-reviewed publication, is deposit the peer-reviewed version of your manuscript in a trusted repository. And I'll mention what the different versions are and what the concept of trusted repository in a second. And it has to be immediate open access upon publication. So if you were funded by the previous framework, H2020, this was different because you had an embargo period of 6 or 12 months, depending on the field. This is not the case anymore with Horizon Europe. You need to apply an open license, so Creative Commons attribution license on one of those peer-reviewed version of your manuscript. And again, as I said, I'm repeating myself, but it's something that they do insist on, is providing information about research outputs. And obviously acknowledge the EU and add the acronym, the DOI of the project inside the publications. So in terms of what the versions are, we talk about preprint, author-accepted manuscript, and version of record, the three main manuscripts, versions of your manuscript. So before the peer review would be the preprints, then it goes through you submit it to the publisher, it goes through peer review. The final accepted version after all the revisions becomes the author-accepted manuscript. I call this the ugly version of your work because it's basically the same content as the version of record, but it's not edited yet. It's not formatted. And the version of record is basically the publisher's version after the copy editing, the typesetting. So any of those two, if you apply a Creative Commons license on any of those two and upload it on the repository, you would be compliant. So in terms of uploading on a repository, you need to do that yourself. So a repository is basically a platform that provides free, immediate and permanent access to research papers. And so social networking sites like ResearchGate, Academia, which they are useful, obviously, for you as researchers, but they are not considered as repositories. So bear that in mind. And we talk about self-archiving because you have to deposit your work. You have to make that steps. So regardless of where you publish, and this is an important aspect that some people get confused with, even if you pay for open access, meaning that it is available, your work is available in open access on the publisher's website, you do need to deposit one of the versions, so usually in your case, the version of record, if you pay for open access, on a repository. So it's really about where you make it available in open access, not where you publish. So in terms of trusted repositories, again, this is a bit of a confusing topic because there are some different definitions, but different categories of trusted repositories. And there are some requirements that are not all met by all repositories. So there's three main ones, two main ones, I would say: the discipline or domain specific, and the institutional ones, and the general purpose one. So if you view this, so we organize this webinar 3 times a year. And so if you watch this video in the past, we mentioned that anything that you find on OpenAIRE Explore or OpenDoor would be compliant. But there are some set of requirements, metadata requirements. So metadata are descriptors of your data, like the authors, the title, the license, and those kind of things. And currently, there's only 5 trusted repositories that are what we call ready for compliance. So there was a study that was made about this, and you can check if your repository is compliant or not in the future. So I do apologize. This slide is actually a bit different from the one that I uploaded on Zenodo, because I realized after that I had forgotten to update that what the recommendations in terms of what to do to be compliant. So what we recommend, because it's a bit complicated, is to deposit on a trusted subject-specific repository or your institutional repository, because it's relevant to your field, because it improves visibility and trustworthiness in your field. There's better community engagement. Get a DOI from that repository, and then go on Zenodo. Zenodo is fully compliant. Upload it again, the same version on this, and you will see that on Zenodo they will ask you, do you already have a DOI for this upload? And you would say yes, and you would paste basically that DOI. Then you would fill in all the different metadata fields as much as possible, and the two basically will be linked, and like that you are relevant for your field, but you're also compliant from a purely legal point of view with the European Commission's mandate. So in terms of license, as I mentioned before, the author-accepted manuscript or the version of record has to be under a Creative Commons attribution license. So there are different ways you can achieve this. So you can publish in a fully open access journal, which a lot of them do have an APC, an article processing charge. And then, but not all of them, there are some diamond open access journals out there where you as authors wouldn't pay. And so the version of record, the publisher's version, would be under a CC BY license, and you would be able to share that version. You can pay to publish in a hybrid venue. So hybrid venues are publishers that are traditional subscription-based journals, but also allow to pay for open access. And those are considered, let's say, bad because of the concept of what we call double dipping, where basically publishers are getting money from the libraries to get the subscription based, but also from authors. So that's why there's tension in that. But in terms of the European Commission, you are allowed to publish in this. This is really important. It's just that you won't be able to get to use your grant money to cover those APCs. And then you can also publish in a subscription-based journal and add what we call the rights retention statement, which I'll mention in the next slide. So one thing I want to, in terms of, in case you're not really familiar with what licenses really mean in terms of your work, a Creative Commons license will basically mean that you as authors own the rights to that version. So you can basically do whatever you want because you still retain your authorship. And so that means that you can deposit it on the repository as you want. An important thing is, because of this model of the hybrid, the subscription-based journals, it could be that you have a case where the author-accepted manuscript and the version of record have different licenses applied to it. You might get a CC BY license on the author-accepted manuscript, which is a version you would share on the repository. But then you would sign a copyright transfer agreement for the version of record with the publisher on the version of record. That's possible, and it's not incompatible with the EC's requirements. If you are dealing with long text formats, so monograph books, and importance, we're not talking about chapters in an edited book because they are considered as articles. But actual monographs and books, you can apply a more restrictive license. So in terms of Creative Commons, just to give you a brief understanding of what it is, Creative Commons attribution means that you can share, adapt, for any purpose, even commercially, as long as you credit the authors. That's the license you would be applying. And we will talk also about, when I talk about research data, we'll mention CC0, which it's basically kind of public domain license where you don't need attribution, but even though you are in the academic world, so it is best practice anyway to cite references. So there are some reasons why it's better for data, but now I'm going into details of that. So the rights retention statement is a statement that you add during the submission process. So you add it to the manuscript, basically, and you submit it to the publisher with this. Just so you know, not all publishers accept this statement. And if you're submitting to a full open access journal, that doesn't work, because you would still need to, it only works with journals that are subscription-based or hybrid. And it basically says that you will retain your authorship, so your copyright on the author-accepted manuscript by applying a CC BY license. You can check the journal's eligibility on the journal checker tool, where you can basically, under My Funder, as you see in the left image, you would put European Commission, the name of the journal, and it will tell you basically if the journal allows this rights retention statements or not. So this is also just for reference, a diagram to summarize basically what I said. So I already kind of mentioned this, but in terms of budget, the publication fees for open access, so what we call article processing charges or book processing charges, can be covered only if the venue is full open access. So as I mentioned before, you are allowed to publish in hybrid venues, but you cannot use the grant money to cover this. You need to find other ways to cover the APCs for those. And as with H2020 and with a lot of funders, any printing fees for color charges and this kind of things cannot be covered either by the grants. So again, something that I mentioned at the very beginning about the research outputs, tools, and instruments. You should add as much extra information basically as possible. So information such as description of the tools and instruments you use, how to access it, and any dependencies for commercial product softwares, specific softwares that you are using. And so one of the best practice would be to have open access to those research outputs, tools, and instruments as well. So there's another option in terms of publishing that is provided by the European Commission, and it is called Open Research Europe. So it's the European Commission's publishing platform. Usually we have someone from the European Commission that presents this, but unfortunately they couldn't be here today. So you'll be hearing more of me, but I'll just present that. So I've adapted the slides basically for this talk. So Open Research Europe is what we call a diamond open access publishing platform, meaning that we call it diamond because there are no fees for the readers or the authors. So it's provided to anyone that is partly or fully funded by the European Commission. So that includes previous frameworks like H2020. And it is a publishing platform. So that's a really important concept. It's not a repository. So you publish in it. You wouldn't publish in another journal and then also in it. It's either one or the other. So there are no cost, and but it's an optional service. You don't have to use it, obviously. There are some advantages to it that I'll mention a bit afterwards, but it is optional. It is based on a post-publication open peer review process, meaning that the name of the reviewers, the revisions themselves, and the comments from the authors after the revisions are all openly available, and they're all under a CC BY license, so an open license. The concept of open peer review is post-publication open peer review means that you publish immediately. Oh, well, no, sorry, I shouldn't say publish. You make your work available for others to read immediately, publicly available online, and then only the review takes place. The concept of publishing only happens once the manuscript undergoes peer review, but it is publicly available for others to read. And so one of the nice thing about this is that it has an automatic compliance with the European Commission's open access requirements, because it deposits for you the it does this self-archiving step of depositing on Zenodo, so you don't need to do that step. And it has, like any other high-quality journal, it has high scientific standard and policies. We have an advisory board, guidelines, and everything that is. It's basically a publisher, a publishing venue. So by the end of 2024, and sorry, I don't have the updated numbers, there were around 850 articles published on it, with 600 articles indexed. So index means that they've successfully completely peer-reviewed, and that the articles are not indexed until they have passed peer review. There's around 1,500 authors and nearly 2,000 reviewers, and 850 unique institutions published. So in terms of the process, you you submit your article for on the platform, and then there will be the Open Research Europe team will there's an in-house professional team that will make some pre-publication checks. Then you will have selection of the reviewers. It will be sent. The review will happen basically. So, and at each stage of the revision, new comments, new revision, new comments, new revision. Every time those are published alongside openly, so that everyone can see, and the reviewers will say whether they approve or not the work. Then once it's approved, it is indexed in a lot of different places, including Scopus and PubMed. So an important thing that the European Commission highlights is that it is multidisciplinary. So it is really for everyone, for any type of research field, and it's throughout the research process. So you have a lot of different types of articles that you can publish. One thing that they don't have, just for any information, is monographs. So this is something that they don't yet publish through Open Research Europe. So the pre-publication checks that the in-house editorial team does is about different criteria, like if the author adhered to the different guidelines, and the availability of the underlying data. They check for language, and ethical approval. So there's various checks that are made, but all those are not, they don't basically review the academic or scientific content, only the quality itself, the work itself, but excluding the actual content. So the reviewing process, the reviews are suggested by the article authors, and then the editorial team basically checks if they meet the criteria, like any conflict of interest, which is similar to any type of publishing venue. There's an extensive list of questions that must be answered. And once all the reviews have been performed, the editorial team will check the process, the content, the language, and all that. So in terms of, we talk about, I mentioned about accepting or not sorry, I'm looking for my words for this because I don't usually present it, so it's a bit. They publish the paper gets indexed once it gets approved, and to get approved, you need or two reviewers that approved, or one reviewer that approved and two reviewers that approved with reservations. So if one of the reviewers did not approve, or if they have three approved with reservations, you would continue the reviewing and revision process until it gets approved. And until then, it wouldn't be indexed. It would still be available, but it's not indexed. So this is just an example of what it looks like, the reports and the author's response. And an important aspect also that the European Commission emphasizes in it is the access to research communities. So they are gradually developing researcher-led community gateways and collections. So here you can see some examples. And so all the different papers that are published on Open Research Europe that are linked to that would appear in those communities. So if you want more information, you can obviously contact them directly, or also reach out to us on the help desk. Usually we can answer most questions related to Open Research Europe. Okay, so this is for publications. Now let's talk a bit about data. So one of the parts that I mentioned for the open science requirements is open access to publications and research data management. So in terms of the mandate, you must manage the data in line with what's called the FAIR principles, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Unfortunately, I won't go into details today because there's too much to cover in that aspect. But it's just for you to have an idea about it. You need to hand in a data management plan by month 6, updated mid-project and before the end of the project. Creating a data management plan takes time, so I would really recommend you start as soon as you start basically the project. Don't wait until month 5 to start. You would need to deposit your data and your metadata and all your metadata as soon as possible after production or after processing and the different quality controls. So if you don't want to share the data, you would still deposit the metadata to basically tell people that you've created the data, it exists out there. It doesn't necessarily need to be available, but it needs to be visible that it exists. And you would deposit your data in a trusted repository and make it as open as possible. So it's as open as possible, as close as necessary. So it's open by default, but there are reasons why you might want to close access to that data. So I'm not going to go into detail for the FAIR principles, but just a few comments about the data management plan. As I said, do it as soon as possible. And it is a living document in the sense that you would need to update it as soon as something has changed in your project. If something, someone new is managing your data, like a new data steward, then you would update your DMP to reflect that. So it really identifies the key actions and strategies to make sure that your data is managed as efficiently as possible. That is, it's especially if you have personal data, that you're managing personal data, it's kept safe and all these kind of things. The issue with DMPs is that there are no absolute right answers. So we can't hand you basically a template to copy because it's really adapted to your specific project. The only thing we always say is to be as clear, specific, and detailed as possible. This is there's no right or wrong answer. It's as long as you justify everything, that you explain why you did it, it's fine. And it's basically to prove to the funder, because you know what you're doing, but it's just the DMP is there also to prove to the funder that you know what you're doing. So as I said before, the data can be closed, but the metadata, so this descriptors must be under the FAIR principles and under CC0 license. Therefore, you need to deposit it on a repository to make it available. There are some valid justifications for not opening the data. So the three main ones are commercially valuable data. Again, the EC is very clear that if you can make money basically out of, if you can exploit commercially, I should say, your data, then you should definitely do it. Any obviously data protection, privacy, sensitive data, personal data, then obviously you would not share that data. And same thing with security rules concerning assets of the EU. There are a couple of exceptions which came after the pandemic of COVID-19, which the validations of findings in terms of public emergencies can be triggered by the EC, and you will need to provide immediate open access basically to all the data. Okay, now I've talked enough. I'll give I'll let Lars talk about the EU Open Research Repository.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so the EU Open Research Repository, that's essentially a community on Zenodo. It's a dedicated area on Zenodo which has focused on EU-funded research, and that gathers everything that has been deposited on Zenodo for EU-funded research. Okay, it's managed by CERN on behalf of the Commission. You can share all the different research outputs that you do as part of the project, and it's essentially a trusted repository solution for projects that have been funded by the EC. Okay, it's not meant as this is the place where everything has to go, as Jonathan already explained. I mean, data should go in the subject-based repository, preferably, and things like that. But it is one area where it makes some of the compliance a bit easier for you. Then just one slide on what is really the difference, because now there's two services kind of from the Commission. One is ORE and the other one is Open Research Europe. So I hope it's relatively clear that ORE is essentially for publishing articles, and there's the peer review, there's the open peer review part in it, there's the publishing venue, and it's basically for text. Everything else that is not on the journal articles, that's presentations, posters, EU deliverables, data sets, and things like that, can go on the EU Open Research Repository. It's curated, everything that goes in there, but it's not peer reviewed. Okay, so the EC projects that are using this solution is essentially helping curate the content that goes in there. Let's see, yeah, the next slide. Okay, so when you're an EU project, you can essentially go and request to get an EU project community. So it's the same as a normal Zenodo community, if you know what that is, except that it's whatever you put in there is also available inside the EU Open Research Repository. Okay, it's a place where you, from all the different partners that participate in a project, can collaborate and store all your different outputs. So it's easy. Often each institution has their own institutional repository, but then if you have to log in and deposit something in an institutional repository, it's not always easy to get access. So Zenodo is kind of a neutral place where you can meet and share some of all the outputs. Okay. We've added many different features for ensuring the compliance with the Horizon Europe Open Science requirements. So it's not enough just to deposit in Zenodo. Okay, there's more things. There's certain metadata that you have to add. Okay, so here this is just one example of how you can collaborate. So inside this community, you can log in with your institution. You can decide who can review records, who can submit, things like that. Okay. Let me see if I. Have a little bit of trouble. Yeah. So with the open science compliance, then for instance, when you deposit now in the EU Open Research Repository, it will automatically check, for instance, if you're depositing journal articles, then does it have a CC BY license? And if it doesn't have, it will warn you and say, well, it should provide equivalent rights. So all the things that Jonathan has explained, it will check most of the things there. It's also like checking have you provided persistent identifiers for creators, have you linked it to a grant and the things. So this gives you the certainty that you are compliant with what the Commission is asking. We have added some very simple fair checks, so to say. So we have the metadata, but the files themselves is also getting checks to see if the files are in an open and scientific file format. So that's a very basic check just to see, is there a chance that we will be able to open these things, or people will be able to open these things in 5-10 years down the line. Okay, this is an area where we are expanding in, but this is really just the very beginning. So to get started with the EU Open Research Repository is pretty simple. There's a guide on help.zenodo.org. The requirements is that you are funded by the European Commission Research and Innovation Program. So that's, for instance, Horizon Europe. It's also the previous programs. It's Marie Curie, it's EOSC, it's Euroatom. There's certain other funding programs from the European Commission. I think one is like digital transformation or things like that, which is not a research program, and you're not eligible if you're in one of these programs. So it really has to be from one of the research and innovation programs. Okay. But then essentially you go on Help Zenodo. There's a guide for how you will be able to set up a new project. You make a request. The person who requests to set up one of these project communities has to have an affiliation from one of the project partners. So we'll verify that the person requesting this is actually coming from one of the institutions that is listed on the grant. Okay, and once that's done, you can get started and you have a place to collect your presentations, your deliverables, your data management plan, data sets, and everything. Okay, so that was about the EU Open Research Repository. Thank you. I'll give it back to you now, Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, Lars. Yes, so now let's have a look at some useful tools And we'll just start straight with the EOSC EU Node. And Maya, I'll give you control.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonathan. So hi everyone, and my name as well. So in this section, we're gonna basically just explore quickly how the EOSC EU Node initiative enables open science by providing access to research data, services, and computing resources. And basically, you will see that this platform can play a crucial role in helping you to comply with open science and fair data principles. So what is actually the EOSC EU Node? Let's see. Okay, yeah, it moved. Yay. So the EOSC EU Node is a key infrastructure for open science in Europe, as already said. It is a federated platform, and the EOSC EU Node is just one. It's just one of the nodes that are being currently developed within the federation of the EOSC. So we will see what happens in the future. But this platform basically now enables researchers to access and share publicly funded research outputs across disciplines. It supports open science principles such as, as we already heard, fair data, open access, reproducibility. And this platform is built and operated by a consortium of research institutions, which then ensures compliance with Horizon Europe's open science policies as well. So who can use the EOSC EU Node? It's really open to a broad audience. So while it's highly beneficial for Horizon Europe projects, it's of course not limited to them. It is accessible to all researchers, academic institutions, citizen scientists, and other public initiatives. And what is important to note here is that the platform is free to use. It's supported by the European Commission funding, and there is a credit-based system that ensures fair allocation of computing and data resources. What is to note here is that we have recently also doubled the credits that an individual that a researcher and all other possible users within the systems can get. So there are even more possibilities for you to use the available tools and services and really benefit from what EOSC EU Node is offering you. So why the EOSC EU Node for Horizon Europe? As we have heard, Horizon Europe places really a strong emphasis on open science, and the EOSC EU Node basically provides the necessary infrastructure to support this. It simplifies compliance with European Commission's requirements, enhances basically transparency, and improves the overall impact of research. The EOSC EU Node is basically built on interdisciplinarity in mind and seamless collaboration by enabling researchers to either, for example, to share files securely via the file sync and share service. But then, for example, they can develop and deploy applications for the Tools Hub using ready-to-use cloud deployment recipes, or, for example, they can create and share interactive notebooks that leverage high-performance computing and storage resources. And all this, of course, then ensures efficient teamwork and knowledge exchange across different disciplines. So the EOSC EU Node empowers researchers by providing access to a vast repository of over 140 million research resources through the Resource Hub, which enables seamless discovery and reuse of data, publication, software, and other possible research outputs. Researchers can also leverage the Tools Hub to easily deploy applications over cloud resources or utilize the 6 specialized services for data processing and analysis. And they can also access personalized research environment via the user space that's there for them. So throughout their journey, they can also receive comprehensive support. We have a help desk, we have FAQs, really vigorous documentation, and of course, training resources. And all of this ensures a smooth and efficient research experience. So the Resource Hub is basically the core feature of the EOSC EU Node. It's available without login. You just go to the website of the EOSC EU Node and click on the Resource Hub. And you can basically search and find different research outputs you might be interested in. And this Resource Hub is basically aggregating research outputs from multiple European sources. It includes indexed resources, publications, datasets, software, training resources, and so on. And you can basically use this hub to discover new data sets and integrate them into your work. And this feature significantly enhances collaboration and data reuse, which is a key principle in open science. EOSC Node offers currently 6 services to streamline research workflows. First is file sync and share. This is a service where you can easily share files across locations and teams. It's basically built on collaboration. Then we have interactive notebooks where you can create and share documents with real-time code execution, for example, R or Jupyter notebooks and so on, and collaborate together with your team. Then we have the large file transfer service, which is a service used to securely transfer, as it says, large files. Then we have a service called virtual machines, where you can use it to compute resources, where you can use compute resources to launch your own virtual machine to create isolated environment for experimenting with different, for example, with different configurations, different software setups or algorithms, whatever your project is about. And these compute resources can also be used to create reproducible research environments. Another service is Cloud Container Platform, and this one is used for deploying applications that can easily scale. And the 6th service that we have currently is the bulk data transfer, which can be used to move large amounts of data effortlessly. The user space provides a personalized dashboard where researchers can access the Tools Hub and the 6 services. They can also manage their credits here and create groups, so invite their team members to collaborate within this user space together. And it integrates tools for data storage, analysis, and sharing, making it basically a central workplace for researchers using the EOSC Node services. So how can you basically use the EOSC Node throughout the research data life cycles? EOSC Node supports all stages of the research data life cycle, so you can use it from data collection to publication and reuse. For example, you have here listed some of the use cases for the EOSC Node. For example, a Horizon Europe project can browse Resource Hub to find existing data sets to reuse, reducing duplication of effort. Then, for example, a research team analyzing climate data can use virtual machines to store and pre-process satellite images before analysis. Of course, you can use also the Jupyter notebooks to analyze the data you have within your team. And following the entire research data life cycle, you can also, of course, use it to monitor the metrics of your team, because the EOSC Node also has integrated metrics dashboard that provides insight on data usage, downloads, and citations, which all this ensures compliance with the EC reporting requirements. For example, another example could be that the social scientists would find economic data sets in the Resource Hub and integrates them into new research, ensuring cross-disciplinary collaboration. What the goal here is that all the results coming from the Horizon Europe projects the goal is that they would find a way to be visible in the Resource Hub of the EOSC Node as well, which doesn't mean that you can publish yourself in the Resource Hub, but that you publish in a repository that is harvested by the Resource Hub, which means, for example, anything that's harvested by the OpenAIRE graph, for example, directly goes to the Resource Hub, which is then a good way to entry into the Resource Hub and to ensure the visibility of the project. Okay, so how could you integrate the EOSC Node into your research proposals? You can support key aspects of the research lifecycle with the EOSC Node. First, you could mention it in data management plans as a resource for data storage, sharing, and processing, and that will ensure compliance with the Horizon Europe Open Science requirements. Researchers can also apply EOSC Node tools and services throughout the research lifecycle, so from data collection to analysis and publication, enhancing collaboration and efficiency. And additionally, it also helps to ensure compliance with open science mandate, as it is a federated infrastructure that aligns with fair data principles, as we said, making research outputs more accessible and reusable. And finally, it could also be referenced in dissemination and impact plans, demonstrating how the project will use the EOSC Node to maximize visibility, accessibility, and long-term sustainability of research outputs. So to support you on your EOSC Node journey, we have recently launched also an EOSC Node Learning Center on OpenPlato, where you can find tutorials and courses for researchers. Tutorials here are basically just quick and step-by-step guides to help you understand the various elements of the EOSC Node, specifically all the services and tools that you could use. And courses, on the other hand, deepen your knowledge and skills in using the EOSC Node services and tools. By completing a course, you can also earn a certificate that verifies your participation and knowledge in the EOSC Node and Open Science. However, you can also complete a designated learning path, which will then at the end earn you a digital badge that you can then use in your CV, LinkedIn profile, or professional portfolio to demonstrate your skills and expertise. So how to basically start with the EOSC Node? It's really simple. Just visit the website of the EOSC Node, explore the resource hub, sign in using your institutional credentials. We have a simple AAI login. Then use all of the available tools that are there for you, including virtual machine, Jupyter notebooks, file sync and share service, cloud storage, and so on. And integrate, of course, EOSC Node services into your research workflows and Horizon Europe proposals. And by this, you will basically ensure that you can fully leverage the EOSC Node capabilities. And to conclude, I would just like to invite you, if you want to learn more about the EOSC Node or you have any questions, we will have an Ask Me Anything session for researchers next Tuesday, so 8th of July at 14 Central European time. We will be there and presenting you our new user policies, credit models, training resources, and some federated services. And this will be a space where you can basically ask anything you would like to get an answer from either me or my colleagues involved in the EOSC Node. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your participation and listening to me, and looking forward to the questions. So I'll give it back the remote to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Yes, so just a couple more tools that you might be interested. We already mentioned OpenAIRE Explore a bit before, which is a platform that allows you basically to search for anything, publication, research data, softwares, organizations, grants. So it basically gathers data from many different sources, and it's quite useful to find new publications and data sets. Amnesia is an anonymization tool that is also provided by OpenAIRE. So if you're interested, you can go on the website to see how it works, which is really useful when you have sensitive or personal data. Argos is a DMP writing tool, so it's a software basically that helps you in the process of writing your DMP by having different questions and walking you through the whole process. I'll just briefly mention the reporting and monitoring because it can sometimes be a bit confusing. So I don't know at what stage you are of your grant, but it's something that you can do during any stage of the program. So there's an extensive part of reporting in terms of open science practices. So there's the structured reporting for open access, and there's also free text reporting for other types of open science practices, which is monitored by the project officers, reviewed, let's have a look at the participant portal. So you have, in terms of the continuous reporting, the publications tab that basically will list automatically, normally, anything that you've tagged basically with the project's acronym or name. It will basically appear there. But you can also, if it's missing some fields, you can add it. You can import searching with the DOI, for instance. So there's this is also for reference for later, because I like to put more information on the sites just for reference for afterwards. But the datasets is the same thing. It's the same principle. It will be automatically referenced here, and you can add it with automatically. You can import it with the DOI. Something that is a bit more confusing is the difference between results and other results. So results is really focused on the content of the results of any discoveries, theories, any products, services, methods, whereas the other results tab is more for reporting about tools, so software, workflows, protocols, prototypes that you created as part of the project. So those also are important in terms of the open science monitoring and reporting. So I won't take long on this, but I want to mention a couple of things if you are writing basically your grant proposal, because there are some open science requirements to take into consideration when writing the grant proposal. So here is where the different parts appear in terms of link to open science in the grant proposal. In terms of the publications, the publication you cite should be available in open access. So they don't necessarily need to be under a Creative Commons license like the requirements during the project, but all the publication that you cite to your publication that you cite, not others, but your publication should be available on the repository in open access for the reviewers to be able to have access to them. An important aspect also is remember that the publications are evaluated qualitatively. We're not looking at the impact factor of the journal where it's published anymore. So even if it was published in Nature or Science, it doesn't matter. It's really the content that is reviewed by the reviewers. And also you can give some insight in where you are hoping to publish. In terms of research data, your data also that's listed should be following the FAIR principles. It should be available on a repository. And a DMP, so a data management plan, is not needed at this stage, but they do ask you some questions to fill in. Some questions are very similar to what you would need to fill in a DMP. So in a way, it's kind of like a mini DMP that they're asking you. So you will still need to really consider and sit down and consider what, how you will manage your data during the project. Remember, and this is very important because people forget to do it, you can add in your budget some elements linked to open science. So you can add data curation costs, like for instance, to have a data steward, anything related to citizen science, so engagements of citizens. You can also add this kind of things. And remember also to add the article processing charges for full open access journal. That's also why I put here, give insight in where you are hoping to publish, because that also gives you an idea of how much you're asking, basically. So remember to be as specific as possible. Make it easy for the project officer, for the reviewers to find all the information. And one thing that I usually see in DMPs, for instance, especially, is people explaining what open access is, what FAIR data is. You don't need to do that. People know what it is. So really focus on the content of your project. There are a couple of special cases, and that's for the ERC and for the MSCA. So in the European Research Council grants, there's no explicit evaluation or requirements to describe open science. But implicitly, if you add them, it will have a positive aspect on it. And in terms of the MSCA, there's much more of it's much more included also in the excellence criteria. But an important difference with all the other Horizon Europe grants is that there's no specific cost eligibility rule for the APCs, meaning that you can use your grant money if you're funded by a Marie Curie fellowship to publish in a hybrid journal. This is possible with MSCA, which is not the case for any of the Horizon Europe projects. So open science recommended practices is a set of a lot of different types of, because open science is an umbrella term. We always talk about open access to publication and research data management, but it has many more layers to it. And in the grant proposal, those are not mandatory fields, but if you do include them, they will always have a positive impact on your scoring. They will never have a negative impact if you don't include them, but they can have a positive impact on it. So I've included some slides about pre-registration, preprints, public engagement, citizen science, and all this type of other types of optional open science practices. So just to finish, before we go to questions, the overall tips I would give, and this may be a bit, innocent to a certain extent, but is to try and as soon as possible to design an open science strategy for your project. So include any specific provision in the consortium agreement, because that is where there's sometimes some tensions between partners if that wasn't included, because you want to make sure that you agree from the beginning about where your publication and data will be deposited, who is responsible for doing this. You don't want to be, reaching the end of the project and like no one wants to take responsibility to do it. Who will make sure that all the outputs have been deposited in the repositories and all that. So implement your open science strategy. As I said before, there's no right or wrong answer. So you just report and update anything that you do. If there are any issues, if there are any modification, you update it, you explain, be transparent about it, keep track of the issues, and obviously discuss the solution with the project officer, with consortium members, with people from your institution that are there to help, like librarians, research support staff. All those people are there to help in the process. We organize this webinar 3 times a year. The next one will be in November. And if you would like to register for any upcoming OpenAIRE trainings that we organize, you can scan this QR code and fill in your contact details, and we'll email you with any trainings that we do. Yes, so this is here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lars and Maya, for talking. And then now we'll just have an half hour of Q&A. So let me look at the Q&A. There's no question. Okay, I'll just read the 2 questions that was there. Does Zenodo give a DOI to the items? And so Lars answers, yes, Zenodo register DOI for your uploads in case you don't already have a DOI. You can also reserve a DOI, which, by the way, is what I did for this presentation. I reserved it, added to the slides, and then uploaded it on it so that it's already on the slides. So you can reserve a DOI to include the document before you upload them, and then you have a link that he puts. And then Halia asks, I'm I'm a library employee and I'm taking part in a webinar for the first time. Where can I find instructions, videos on depositing papers and research data on Zenodo? Is a webinar with instructions on depositing, for example, research data plan. And so Lars says there's step-by-step guides available on help.zenodo.org. There's a quick overview. He pasted another link, and he also pasted a link to a previous webinar with a live demo. So yeah, all those links are in the Q&A and in the answered tab of the Q&A. I don't see any other questions. So do you have, or is it in the chat maybe? Where's the chat? Chat.
I don't see any further.
No, everything was directed to the Q&A, and we don't have any.
Well, we'll stay here for at least another 5 minutes anyway, in case you have questions, because if you don't and you realize you forgot something and you want to ask us, you can email us at helpdesk.openair.eu. I'm the one usually who answers all those questions. But yeah, don't hesitate if there's something that wasn't clear or if you have any other doubts. Well, hopefully it means that everything was super clear. There's times where we get many questions and others where we get less. So. Okay. In that case, if there's no more questions, please email us if you have anything. The video, as Marie said, will be available on YouTube today or tomorrow. Yes, thank you very much for being here. And thanks again, Maya and Lars, for being here. It was really valuable, and it means people don't get bored with me speaking for like 2 hours. But yeah. Okay, thanks everyone for being
Yeah,
there.
there's just one
attending.
question that
Yes.
if the links in the chat will be sent also.
The links are already in the presentation.
Yes.
So those are extracted from the presentation, basically. So, yep. And the first slide I showed with all the different buttons are basically all the different links also. So thanks for I'm pretty new to the Horizon Europe Open Science requirements. Through all the calls are open science requirements the same? Yes. I would say the academic ones. I'm less familiar, I must admit, to the ones that are more, I don't know how you call them, industry-based and more commercial. Those ones I don't think I really. It's a different set of rules, but any Horizon Europe, ERC, MSCA, they all fall under the same rules. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and have a lovely week. Hopefully not too hot where you are, and yes, have a nice summer. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.